Okay, a 1996 engine, 1994 XLH Sportster, and the barrels have been removed, the piston rings have been removed. That's in the previous video, and this video I'm just going to get the pistons off the con rods, and I'll give them a clean. Previous video we saw that there was a broken piston ring, top piston ring. When the engine was assembled, I found that there was a lot of unburnt oil, and there wasn't much carbon. There was just that bit of carbon on the top there. I haven't cleaned the sides yet, so I'll get around to doing that now. I'm not an auto electrician or a mechanic. My previous experience was with working with two-strokes in the mid-70s, and did a bit of work in the early 80s, and just what I need to do to fix my cars from time to time and keep my cars running. Side movement on the rear piston is 2 millimeters. Side movement on the front piston is 3 millimeters. Probably not exactly kosher, but I can't see why it wouldn't work. I've got plastic coverings over the steel bolts, and they're simply forced apart, and they're centered in these two, in between the two bolts at the front and the back, and that way the piston's solid, you know, won't move while I drive out the pins. Okay, this is looking at the top of the rear piston, standard piston. Got the arrow here on the right hand side. The front of a stock piston, we've got the arrow pointing forward on the left hand side. Rear piston number, reading from the left hand side of the bike, is 22,650 88C. 22,650 88C. Front piston, that should be 22,650 88A. 22,650 88A. When I reinstall these, I'm going to be freezing them in the freezer before I put them back in. By the way, the gudgeon pin is located either side of this access hole here. So you got that hole there, and the pin starts there and there. I just get the pin back and just get the bottom in and underneath, and curl it out and back. Okay, so of course at this stage the famous brace doesn't work anymore because one of the pistons was loose. Okay, separate film. This is how the pistons go on. Harley Sportster 1996 engine, Evolution. So you've got the arrow pointing back, and that's on the right hand side. The front cylinder, the arrow is pointing forward, and that's on the left hand side. Just be aware that if you put the piston, if you lodge them, the piston's in between the bolts here. When you knock, you're actually knocking on this one bolt. So just keep that in mind. The story with this bike is I bought it, and when I went around to buy it, I saw him ride it up and down the road. It seemed to run. However, I did notice that it backfired once or twice when he was riding it, but I thought that it was just electrical and I could get rid of that problem. I rode it to work and back for a couple of weeks, and it seemed to go good. And then all of a sudden it started backfiring like anything, and it got worse and worse, and I took it back to the garage, and if you go and watch Sportster Problem 1, you'll see it running and you'll hear it backfiring from the start. I've been trying to fix it for about a couple of years, and I finally got to the stage now where I've torn down the engine and found the engine to be pretty well clapped out. So if you ever go and buy a second-hand bike, if you're watching somebody ride it, make sure there's absolutely zero oil coming out of the exhaust and absolutely no misfiring. It's got to run perfect and start perfect, otherwise just walk. But then of course you're going to pay top money, and I got this for a rock bottom price. I bought this in Australia back 2 years ago for about 5,300, and once again you get what you pay for. It's just that I don't earn much money, and I've got to fix the bike. Okay, the rear conrod has 0.5 mm travel. Or maybe a quarter of a millimetre. The front conrod has 1.5 mm travel. 1.5 mm. If you've got any suggestions or comments, please do so. So with the feeler gauge, the gap on the side of the in between the piston and the cylinder, 0.014 or 0.35 millimeters. That's on the rear cylinder, on the sides of the piston. With the piston at the top of the barrel, we've got 0.008 or 0.20 millimeters. The front cylinder, you can actually see the gap there. The rear cylinder, it's sort of similar. Okay, back to the front cylinder. With the piston down the bottom of the barrel, we've got 0.013 or 0.33 millimeters. With the piston at the top of the barrel, we've got 0.008 or 0.20 millimeters. I don't know if it's going to show up on camera, but these piston rings have been broken for a long time, and then they've recently broken. You can see there on the bottom of the piston rings is black, and the tops, you can see the metal where it's sheared off. Yeah, you can see it better there, and the bottom half is black where it's broken previously. Funnily enough, this is the one ring, the ring that broke, and I can see that one side of the ring is wider than the other. You might be able to see it there, I'm not sure. Yeah, doesn't show up too bad there. So it's level on that side. The breakage is there, so that's meeting up there. But the other side, yeah, one side's a bit wider. Okay, I'll just wash the pistons and I'll wrap this video up. This has got some type of coating on the piston, so I want to be careful what I use. It's just carburetor cleaner. Anyway, I noticed that the the coating has been worn off the front piston, but I'll clear this area up and see what I've got. If it washes the coating off, then let my loss be your gain. It's strong chemicals. It's just about ruined those gloves. So that was plastic, and this is brass. Yeah, really, carb clean is just too aggressive. You know, it just rips the plastic up. So I think I better just stay clear of that stuff. You can see there the broken ring. That's the machined edge there, and you can see the side towards the camera was sitting in the ring groove, and the outside edge was against the ball, and that's the shiny part. This it's sort of a bit like what would you call it? Sugar, burnt on sugar. It's a bit like toffee or caramel. I don't think it is, because the other piston seems fine. So the oil's been getting up past the ring and messing around in the bore and the head and around the piston, but I can't get this burnt oil to come off. I'm going to go for a slightly softer approach. So I'll just lube up this with engine oil. I'm going to use the machined edge of the broken piston ring just to clean out the piston ring grooves. Probably a good technique, get half a piston ring, put the back half in the groove, the front half in the groove, and just clean it out that way. Then it's guided in straight. Does a pretty good job. Now the bottom groove, or the second groove down. It's not the oil ring groove, but anyway, that does a fairly good job. Now just cleaning out the oil groove, and you can dislodge the the carbon just by using a sanding motion with the machined edge of the ring. Does a good job. The oil ring ports there, the holes, they're not clogged up at all. So they're all good. And the other piston, yep, they're all clear. After a bit of work I can get the piston ring grooves clear. They're a bit sticky at first. But as you can see, after working the piston, it seems to clear up the groove. Yeah, really about the only thing that breaks up this oil is, this carbon is oil and sort of sanding motion, abrasion. You can see there that the piston ring gets rid of that carbon pretty well. Interestingly, you can see that this part of the piston and this part of the piston are flat, but this bit here, just above the oil ring, it sits in. You may be able to see it there. I'm not really sure. You may be able to see a small gap there. I'm just trying to remove some of the carbon, but I think I'm going to have to get some emery cloth to remove that. The drama with this piston is I've got carbon over the coating, so that's the good piston there. And you know, how do you get the carbon off the coating without removing the coating? So that's the tough one. I should get another piston, but I've got to be careful how much money I throw into this thing. I don't know how long it's going to go after I start it up, once the work's done. If I get a good amount of work out of it, you know, I'll probably take the engine apart and split the case and rebuild the big end, but it's really got to prove itself before I go throwing a whole lot of money into it. Okay, stainless steel wool and motor oil, and it's looking starting to look a lot better.